Hey guys, it's your Drabble Geek here, and welcome back to Ace Attorney, where we are about to go into court for the second time. And I'm actually confused as to why, because, I know there's, within this game, you have a set amount of time that the trial must be concluded with, but surely we can get another recess until Maya gets out. I mean, that's what we're assuming, so. In fact, I have no clue why we're in court, because we have much better things to be doing with their time, such as finding Maya in case she isn't in that cavern, even though I sure hope she is, because if she's not, no one knows where she is. But let's get going. Good morning. Oh, are you by yourself? Uh, Morning, Pearls. Mr. Nick, please tell me, what's going to happen to Mystic Maya? I'm sorry. We don't know yet. The investigation is still going on, so I wasn't allowed into the inner temple. Oh, I see. So is Sister Iris still trying to remove those trick locks in the training hall? No, she's the defendant in this case, so she can't be at the inner temple. She's required to be here in court. Then how come she's not here in the defendant's lobby? I have to admit, it's kind of strange. If you're looking for Iris, she's in the prosecutor's lobby. Edgeworth? What's Iris doing over there? She's going over today's testimony with the prosecutor as we speak. Today's testimony? You heard me. Iris is going to be testifying as a witness for the prosecution. Wait, what? The prosecutor is squeezing her for a confession. Or so I heard. Franziska von Karma, what are you up to? I know what you're thinking, but Franziska isn't going to be the prosecutor today. What? Then who is it? Who else would it be but Godot? Godot? Franziska is engaged in some important work at the Sacred Cavern. The Sacred Cavern? You don't mean that she's... Exactly. She has been out there all night, trying to remove those trick locks. With the head nun's assistance, naturally. We estimate that the last of the locks should be taken care of in about 3 hours. I hope everything continues to go smoothly and we receive some good news soon. Yeah, thanks, Edgeworth. Also, why are you here instead of also at the temple? You could have been helping. Prosecutor Godot intends to nail this case shut today. Be prepared to fight like there's no tomorrow. You don't have to tell me that. Touché. I can already see it in your eyes. You're not the same fever-ridden, frantic maniac you were yesterday. It's strange. On the way here, I decided that today would be the end of all this. Almost immediately after I made that decision, I felt myself getting stronger. Interesting. Maybe you passed your cold on to someone else. Literally. And with that, I leave the rest in your capable hands, partner. Thanks. Wait, we're not going to say partner? Come on, Phoenix, that is just the natural next step in the conversation. I still don't have answers for most of the riddles plaguing this case. No, we do not. In the circumstances around the murder of Miss Elise Dunham, no, I mean Misty Faye. Ooh, crap. 1 second. Ooh, sorry about that. My air conditioning started going off and I thought I turned it off. Usually it's really loud. So the murder, the impossible flight Larry claims to have seen. And what that woman is really after. I will solve them all and bring this whole tragedy to an end. Yeah, it's really interesting that all the cases are somehow connected to this family, even though it's been going all over the place, it all links back up. It's very interesting, especially doing this over the course of a couple of games. Wait, we have a new judge? Why? Court is now in session for the trial of Iris of Hazakura Temple. Your Honor, what are you... Who? Me? Well, my little brother came to visit me in my chambers earlier this morning. All of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, he developed a scorching fever and fainted. Wait, the Canadian dude's your brother? Therefore, I'll be standing in for him. I see, Your Honor. So they're brothers? That explains a lot. My poor brother. He looked a bit pale, not to mention said he couldn't be here. That doesn't sound like a coincidence. Sounds more like nepotism. Or the justice system is really that bad here and wherever in the United States we are. It is impossible to predict what the future has in store for any of us. This is precisely why people feel the need to judge the past. And we of the court have been charged with the solemn duty of passing such judgment. I was about to say that we're in court, where you do judge the past. Well said, Mr. Godot. I understood exactly what you said, at least up until the end, anyway. Now then, Mr. Godot, please proceed with your opening statement. Humans are fragile, fickle beings. Our hearts change with the shifting of the tides. There is only one thing that remains a constant in this crazy world. Love. The bitter darkness that lies at the bottom of this mug. Of course it goes back to coffee. So then you mean... forget it. What do you mean? During yesterday's trial, the accused refused to admit her role in the crime. But today, she has had a change of heart. Sister Iris of Hazakura Temple has a confession to make. Confession? The defendant... Iris? Why didn't she discuss this with me first? This is very interesting. Very well. This court will now hear the defendant's confession. I am very skeptical of this. Upon meeting a beautiful lady, I always ask for her name and profession. That's one of my rules. My name is Iris. I am but a simple nun undergoing training at Hazakura Temple. Witness, is there something that you want to confess to? Yes. But first, I want to apologize to Mr. Wright. I can't continue lying to everyone anymore. It's all right. What is it? Mr. Wright, I have to admit that I did play a part in this terrible incident. Are you actually confessing? Are you saying that you were the one who murdered Miss Elise Dunham? No, I'm not, Your Honor. But I dealt with the cover-up after the murder took place. After his spirit left, I took the lifeless shell of Mystic Elise and carried it to the Hazakura Temple courtyard, where I desecrated it. Wait, so there's no way she carried the body and the staff all on her lonesome. I don't believe that. Order in the court. Order. Witness, are you saying you were an accomplice to the murder? Yes, that's correct. What? 3 minutes in court and I'm already covered in a cold sweat. Ha. Everyone on the planet is accomplice to something. Just happens to be that in this case, it's to murder. Isn't that right, Mr. Trite? Well, yeah, she's an accomplice, but all that means is that you haven't found the actual murderer. She's confessed to not being the murderer. This is so weird. Grr, that Godot. So this is the confession they were conferring about. Pains me to say this, but it looks like Iris's testimony was all a lie. Iris's testimony crumpled up and shoved into a pocket. Now then, little lady, if you don't mind, I've got a question for you. Whose crime were you trying to cover up by your actions? Iris was covering for someone. Now I'm definitely up the creek without a paddle or a life jacket. I've been a Hazakura ever since I was a little girl. Hazakura Temple is run by one of the branch families of the Quran tradition. One of our missions is to protect the main family. I'm sorry, but main family? Yes, and that's why I would dirty myself, if need be, to protect her. Wait, Maya's the only one left of the main family. Did she think that Maya killed her? The daughter of the master of the Quran channeling technique, Mystic Maya Fey. Huh? Yeah, this also doesn't make any sense. Wake up and smell the coffee, Trite. She's naming Maya? I mean, it's true she could have thought that, but that makes no sense, especially if she was supposedly locked into the inner temple. Even if she did get possessed by Delilah. Order in the court. So not only did you witness the murder, you know the name of the murderer? I'm terribly sorry, but it's true. I saw her commit the crime with my very own eyes. And then I cleaned up the area to try to protect her. That's ridiculous. Mike can never do such a... The defense will refrain from commenting until the appropriate time. Now, witness, let's hear her testimony. What exactly happened on the night of the crime? Yes, Your Honor. I thought I was prepared for the unexpected, but I never imagined the case would wind up going in this direction. I mean, did she actually see it, or is she just assuming? I went to the inner temple that night, and I saw it all happen in the garden. Well, she also would have been able to see that from... Well, she ran away, and she would have been in the garden, so... That's not proof. I saw Mystic Elise strike Mystic Maya with her staff. While Mystic Maya was still stumbling, Mystic Elise moved to deliver a fatal strike. Mystic Maya tried desperately to defend herself and stole the weapon. It was only in self-defense. You can't blame her for it. That still doesn't explain a darn thing, Iris. So it wasn't self-defense? Yes, Mystic Elise was the one who attacked first. That's why I tried my best to protect Mystic Maya. You moved the victim's body to the temple so that Maya wouldn't be suspected. Isn't that right? Not bad. You got the instincts of a true criminal. That doesn't make any sense as to why Elise would attack her own daughter. Something not quite right. I'm sure it was established yesterday that Iris never went to the inner temple that night, and that the person who did go was that woman. Iris even admitted it. Now then, Mr. Wright, please proceed with your cross-examination. Alright. I'm gonna have to... I think I need to question everything she says, because it's like, nothing is quite adding up. Sister Iris, your testimony has changed quite a bit since yesterday. You stated yesterday that, on the night of the murder, you didn't go to the inner temple. Did she now? Too bad for you. What she said yesterday doesn't mean much today. By the way, where were you when she claimed that she didn't go? It was in the inner temple's training hall. A private conversation between the two of you does not constitute testimony. That would be properly described as hearsay. Well, hearsay is in court. That's actually what testimony is. What do you have to say, witness? I just couldn't tell him the truth at that time. Mystic Maya, she's your girlfriend, isn't she? I didn't want to be the one to break it to you that I saw her commit murder. There. We all understand how difficult this is for you. I mean, again, I'm led to believe that it was actually that Iris might have been the one possessed and she just doesn't remember. Because that's what this is leading me towards. Now then, let's continue with the testimony. What did you witness in the temple garden? Well, Your Honor, I saw Mystic Elise strike Mystic Maya with her staff. You're saying that the victim attacked Maya? I mean, Miss Faye? Yes, it was a truly frightening scene. Mystic Maya was struck hard on the head and she looked like she was going to collapse. What were you doing at the time? Why didn't you stop them from fighting? I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Wright. I was frightened. I couldn't move. I couldn't even speak. I was in such shock. That's perfectly understandable, my dear. This doesn't sound right. I don't believe this testimony for a minute. What happened after that? While Mystic Maya was still stumbling, Mystic Elise moved in to deliver a fatal strike. This doesn't make sense if she doesn't know that the staff is also a sword. She moved in to deliver a fatal strike? Yes, I'm sure of it. She threw down her staff and reached into her robe for a weapon. Wait a minute. What was this weapon? It was some kind of dagger. A dagger, huh? And Elise Dunham tried to stab her with this weapon? To kill Miss Faye? Yes, exactly. Ha. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. You look like I did after I mistakenly took a swig of Worcestershire sauce. Can't pronounce that like everyone else. Do you have a problem with the testimony you're hearing from your client, lawyer boy? Do you have a problem with Iris's testimony? There is one thing. Your Honor, I have a small problem with the witness's testimony. You do? But this witness is your own client. Yes, well, nevertheless. That's fine. Witness, let's add your last statement to the testimony. Yes, sir. Hey, just a moment. It's my job to say that. Listen, Gramps, I won't say it again. Final judgment will be rendered by me. Okay now, let's continue. She threw her staff away and pulled a dagger from inside her robe. Well, I know that's not possible because the staff is the weapon. Sister Iris, there's something strange about your version of events. Huh? Miss Dunham throwing her staff away makes no sense at all to me. But all you can do with a staff is hit someone. Naturally, you wouldn't know this, Sister Iris, but the victim's staff had a special feature about it. As you can see, it's a sword. Ah. If Elise Dunham really wanted to kill Maya Faye, she wouldn't have needed to use a separate dagger. Not when she already had a beautiful blade in her hands already. Well, Sister Iris, what do you have to say? That was an impressive bit of investigating, Trite. I never would have thought there was a sword hidden in that staff. But even so, how should I put this? It doesn't prove a darn thing. A long sword is unwieldy and thus quite ineffective in close quarters combat. Maybe that's why she chose a dagger over her blade. But is Gumshoe still looking to see if, like, a dagger wouldn't have been able to kill Elise? I think that's what it is. So first you're saying that there's a missing dagger and that somehow a dagger would have been able to do the damage we saw. That was, well, I guess it was covered up by the mystic sword. Chose the dagger. Well. Anyway, the type of weapon she chose isn't what's important. The important thing is that she tried to kill Maya Fey. As long as there's nothing strange about that, there's no problem with her testimony. But there is something strange about this whole testimony. There is. Well, Mr. Wright, the prosecution has a point. Very well, Your Honor. The defense will now present evidence to back its argument. Mr. Wright, I have here another piece of evidence that shows this testimony can't be trusted. Because Miss Elise Dunham would never attempt to take the life of Maya Fey. Because she is really the mother? That's the only thing that makes sense. Elise Dunham would never have attacked Maya Fey. How can you be so sure? Because the victim's real name is not Elise Dunham. Her real name was Misty Fey. Fey? No. Not Mystic Misty Fey. Who is this Misty Fey? Is she related to... Misty Fey is the master of the Quran channeling technique. She is also the mother of Maya Fey. Are you serious? Is it really true, Mr. Wright? Was Elise Dunham actually the great mystic Misty? There's no doubt about it. Looks like Iris had no idea. I can hardly believe it. The idea that she would try to kill her own daughter, one she hadn't seen in 17 years. Perhaps the prosecution can offer some explanation for why she would do such a thing. Yeah, there's no motive. Order in the court. Upon first hearing the witness's testimony, it seemed natural enough. However, in light of some facts that have just been presented, 1, that the victim supposedly threw away a sword during a fight, and 2, that the two people battling to the death were mother and daughter, despite the facts being believable when taken on their own. When taken together, the entire story seems difficult to believe. Listen, there's nothing in the world that is impossible. Except for one little thing. Yes? What is this one little impossible thing? You still don't get it. You think maybe my beans are under roasted? But you have no idea, Gramps. What? Could you get to your point? I heard this witness's confession this morning. Just as I had taken the first sip of my 8th cup of morning coffee. You're going to give yourself a heart attack. That's the way how he's going to die next. Coffee overdose. You're going to ruin your health, my friend. Anyway, after hearing this woman's confession, I had a detective who loves to investigate sent to the scene of the crime. And he discovered this little beauty. Is that the dagger the witness testified to seeing? Obviously, Your Honor. But do you notice something else? Now that you mention it, if you look closely, there appears to be blood on it. Where did you find that? I didn't see that when I investigated the crime scene. Did you investigate the pine tree at the crime scene? There were many trees. The pine tree. This dagger was stuck in the backside of the pine tree. When the last blow was struck, ending the violent battle between the two women, this little baby was thrown in the direction of the back of the pine tree. That is not a pine tree. Which means the blood on this dagger belongs to the victim, correct? Were you even listening, old man? I first heard this confession this morning, just as I had taken the first sip of my 13th cup of morning coffee. I thought it was your 8th. Didn't you just say it was your 8th just a few minutes ago? Didn't have enough time to get the blood analyzed on such short notice. In any case, the court will accept the dagger as evidence. Furthermore, I order that a blood test be performed on it immediately. This is my sweetheart. Make sure you treat her right. Bailiff, get this piece of evidence to the crime lab for testing immediately. Found behind a tree, being analyzed. Now then, the testimony we've just heard had numerous unbelievable aspects to it. However, after having found the very dagger the witness spoke of, I believe we can consider her testimony to be credible. Which is still quite weird. Cute girls never lie. Ever. Then what do you call the entire testimony of yesterday? Godot, stop being special. In any case, witness, if you could please testify again to this court. About what, Your Honor? About the incident you saw, the battle between the two women. Yes, Your Honor. Right, Mystic Maya stumbled briefly after being hit over the head with a staff, but then she dodged Mystic Elise's next attack and stole her weapon. Suddenly, Mystic Elise was the one on the defensive, with her back to the stone lantern. Based on how Maya was written... Oh, there's no picture. That makes no sense. Okay, flash of red. That's when Mystic Elise stabbed Mystic Elise. Mystic Maya stabbed Mystic Elise. Mystic Elise managed to fling the knife away, but then she collapsed. If the snow melted, shouldn't there have still been at least trace of blood? Maybe. That was a very heartbreaking story. I don't know if there were any bad feelings between them, but it had been 17 years since Mystic Misty's disappearance. Perhaps they simply didn't recognize each other anymore. That seems reasonable. I mean, she looks exactly like Mia, so... I don't think so. Now then, Mr. Wright, proceed with your cross-examination. This is just... I don't want to say weird again, but... everything's still not making sense yet. She stumbled briefly. Iris, where were you standing when you witnessed all this? What do you mean? Well, if either of them hadn't noticed you, they might not have continued their battle. I wonder if that's true. The two of them. They were standing near the garden stone lantern. I was watching the whole thing from behind. It was dark where the two of them were, so... I think that's why they didn't see me. So it was dark in the garden when the murder took place? Tell me, what did Miss Maya Fey do after she was struck? Is there a map? That's still really... Wait, what is that? That must be the amethyst that's in the middle. Let's see. But then she dodged the next attack and stole her weapon. How? What happened to the victim's staff then? I'm not sure. The area was very dark, so I really couldn't see. I think it got knocked away somewhere as the fight escalated. That makes sense. That would explain the need for the dagger. Mystic Elise raised the dagger to strike. Mystic Maya dodged it at the last second. The dagger struck the lantern and fell to the ground. Then at some point, Mystic Maya picked it up. Nothing sounds especially strange yet. Well, the light to be able to pick up the dagger is a bit weird. What did the victim do when the weapon was stolen from her? Suddenly, Mystic Maya was the one on the defensive with her back to the stone lantern. You're saying that Maya Fey turned the tables on the victim? Yes. But Mystic Maya was on herself at the time. After all, her life was in danger. I still can't believe it. The idea of Maya cornering someone at knife point is just silly. Unless it wasn't actually Maya. As they say, a cornered fox is more dangerous than a jackal. I believe the correct description of a cornered fox is scared and petrified. Your animal analogies have grown tiresome. You were the one who started it. Anyway, so after Maya Fey backed the victim into the stone lantern, what happened next? A huge flash of red appeared on the screen. Are you absolutely certain that's what you saw? Yes, I'm almost certain. Almost. The garden was dark. I couldn't really tell who was who. What did she just say? So in other words, it could have been someone else entirely. We know that Maya Fey was at the inner temple that night, but she should have been locked up. And that the woman that was killed was Elise Dunham. Isn't it fairly obvious who attacked who? I don't have anything to counter that yet. Well, the fact that Pearl was also there. Well then, witness, please continue with your testimony. Yes, Your Honor. Two of them faced each other for a moment. The Mystic Maya rushed straight into Mystic Elise. The Mystic Elise doubled over and fell to the ground. So she was stabbed in the stomach, huh? Yes. She managed to fling the knife away, but then she collapsed. Where did that dagger go? I have no idea. It was dark and I couldn't see. According to the detective who found the dagger, it was stuck into the pine tree in the garden. Most likely it was flung towards the tree after the struggle. That is the most likely explanation, yes. After being stabbed in the stomach, did the victim collapse right away? Now that I think of it, she seemed to stare at Mystic Maya for a while. Mystic Maya stood there, not moving an inch. It felt for a moment like time had just stopped. But then, suddenly, as if the spell had worn off, Mystic Elise fell over. Seemed like the reasonable story at first, but there's one thing that is completely impossible. The very idea of Maya stabbing someone, that alone is impossible, which means this faulty testimony must contain another contradiction in it somewhere. Let's look at the evidence. The orders talisman doesn't explain the sphere. Courtyard where she was murdered. Lots of blood from stab in the back. There's her, yeah, she was stabbed in the back, so, at least according to the autopsy report, so this means she was stabbed from the front. The evidence clearly reveals how exactly, what? That was a perfect statement. Unless this is where it's supposed to be. Okay, it is. That's not fair. So I'm going to redo that. That's when she's stabbed. Okay, that statement should have also worked, but apparently not. Something about you just isn't right today, Iris. Huh? Until now, I didn't think you were the type to make such a careless mistake. However, the testimony you just gave contains quite a few contradictions. What do you mean? What's wrong with my testimony? According to you, Maya Fey stabbed the victim while she had her back to the stone lantern, correct? Yes, that's right. But in that case, the victim would have been stabbed in the stomach, right? Yes, I think so. But, according to the autopsy report, the cause of death was due to blood loss from a stab wound in her back. Ah. This proves that the victim was stabbed from behind, not from the front. Sister Iris, here's another seed of doubt has sprouted from your testimony. Yeah, she has the same OMG, you found me in a lie animation as her sister. What's the meaning of this, Mr. Wright? Ha. It's simple. People are like books. We've all got a front and a back. You get my drift? Is that all you have to say? I can also say that darkness loves to play with the human mind. Could you please knock it off with the cheesy proverbs and illogical metaphors already? The point is, too much of this testimony doesn't make sense. Throwing away useful staff, the people fighting being mother and daughter. And now she falsely claims the victim was stabbed in the stomach. There certainly are some inconsistencies. Well, Iris, how about it? Well, it's just... If you ask me, you're just being too naive about the whole thing. What do you mean? Is he about to say something about how she just said that she couldn't actually see anything? Because that was like the only thing that kind of makes sense. There are 253 distinct types of bitterness in coffee. But to pick out each one requires total concentration and the use of all the senses. No, it only requires taste and smell. Were you really concentrating on what this witness actually said? Prosecutor Godot, explain yourself. The witness was quite ambiguous about her own ambiguities when she said that the garden was dark and she couldn't see clearly. A human needs one thing to see clearly, and that is light. Light. But that also doesn't explain how she fell. By the way, did you know? Hazakura has a rule that on nights when an acolyte is at the inner temple training, the stone lantern in the garden must be kept lit. I did wonder what that stone lantern was there for. Well, if that's true, shouldn't the witness have been able to see the crime more clearly? Normally, yes, Your Honor. But according to the head nun, Sister Bikini, on the night of the crime, it was impossible to light that stone lantern. Impossible. Had it been used in a long time, the wick was no good. In other words, it had to have been nearly pitch black in the garden that night. There could have been a faint light coming from the training hall, but that's all. Most enlightening. Then why are you accepting her testimony since it's quite obvious she couldn't see anything? It makes no sense. Yes, that illuminating fact has chased all the contradictions away. If the staff was dropped, it would be difficult to see. It also explains why they didn't recognize each other. But it doesn't explain how Maya was able to 1. See the first attack and 2. Pick up the dagger from where it fell. We can't see the demons that lurk in the night. That's why humans are weak. Isn't that right, Trite? No. Order, order, order. Here, Your Honor. Let me present the stone lantern into evidence. Maybe it will rekindle the flame of truth in your mind. Okay, also something else. Luckily, we were able to see it. 1, the name's written upside down. 2, that is blood splatter, not like a mark that would be left from like pulling blood. So again, the testimony makes no sense. Why is the judge just sitting there with a look on his face? What's wrong, Your Honor? Is that flame too hot? This lantern. There's something written on it. Why? It's written in blood. Oh boy. So the judge didn't know about that yet. Written in blood. It it says Maya upside down. But what the? Oh yes, that's right. After being cornered then stabbed by Mystic Maya, Mystic Elise didn't fall down right away. She must have been writing that on the stone lantern behind her, with the blood that was draining out of her body. No. Certainly looks that way. Hang on just a minute. What are you all talking about? What do you mean, what are we all talking about? We're talking about the message written in blood. Nonsense. This lantern is as clean as a whistle. Wait, he has red lenses on. He can't see the red writing. Could it be? He can't see the bloody writing at all. Now that I think of it, he did say something to me yesterday. My eyesight is pretty messed up. Even with these huge goggles on my head, I still can't see everything. So that's what he meant by that. In any case, this is obviously an important clue. We know that the crime scene was dark, and that the victim sprawled this message on the stone lantern. Well, Mr. Godot, anything further? Mr. Godot? Okay then, let's move on. Godot is literally shaking, and somehow, I don't think it's from caffeine overdose. I believe it's now been established that Miss Noonan was killed by Maya Fey. That's just wrong. Now it's time to turn our attention to you. Yes, sir. After the victim died, you did something, didn't you? Let's hear it. We're all ears. Alright, the cover up. After Mystic Elise died, I called out to Mystic Maya. I thought it was my duty to protect the future master of the Quran tradition. So I removed the body from the inner temple by myself. I dragged it behind me all the way across Dusky Bridge. Then I used the snowmobile to carry it back to Hazakura Temple and... Wait, we only saw it going one way in this... Yeah, well, the snow would have stopped when the lightning flashed. I used the sword to alter the way the wound looked. So you moved the body. Yes. I was raised at Hazakura Temple. I owe a great deal of thanks to the Fae clan. But even so, I never imagined that at least Dunham was actually Misty Fae. They've committed a terrible sin. A terrible trick of fate. I believe you're looking for twist of fate, Your Honor. I intended to return to the Ender Temple after taking care of the body, but you were spotted by the head nun, correct? Yes, and that's why I couldn't go back. Your story makes sense, I suppose. Mr. Wright, go ahead with your cross-examination. Yes, Your Honor. I'm going to have to press her on everything. Goodness gracious. Let's say this up again. Right after Mystic Elise died, I called out to Mystic Maya. Okay, let's question her. So you waited until everything was over before making a move? No, it's not like that. She saw someone murdered right in front of her eyes. It's not surprising that she was a little timid. Yes, I suppose that's true. Sometimes when I'm watching lawyers argue back and forth with each other, I feel so helpless that I just sit quietly and wait for them to reach a conclusion. We've noticed. Isn't it your job as judge to mediate the argument? It wasn't until Mystic Maya saw me that it finally dawned on her what she had done. Interesting. Also, I've also realized that the staff ending up at Hazakura Temple, as well as the amethyst ending up near the bridge, doesn't make any sense if she only took the body there. Like, there's something else isn't adding up. Thought it was my duty. So then, you knew. You knew the significance of the name Maya Fey. Yes, of course I did. That's odd. I mean, Sister Bikini didn't recognize Maya's name, let alone her position. Anyway, she was a very special person indeed. So I removed the body by myself. Why did you do that? Because I didn't want Mystic Maya to be suspected in any way. I thought the best thing would be to remove the body from the crime scene. You moved her body all by yourself? Yes, I did. It would have been impossible if it wasn't for the snow. The snow, huh? I dragged it behind me all the way across Dusky Bridge. It's pretty amazing you could make it all the way across. That's a rickety old bridge. It looks worse than it is. It's surprisingly sturdy despite its age. It's like they say, idiots are too stupid to catch even a simple cold. But there's one other thing that bothers me. Why not just throw the body into the Eagle River? It would have been much easier than dragging it all the way to Hazakura Temple. I thought that it would still cast too much suspicion on Mystic Maya. That's why I tried to take her body as far away as possible. Ha. Makes perfect sense to me. For the time being. Anyway, what did you do after you crossed the bridge? Then I used the snowmobile. The snowmobile? I knew that would show up sooner or later. Yes, I had the key. I used the snowmobile to travel from Hazakura Temple to Dusky Bridge. This is the part that was questioned the other day. Should I ask for more details? I'm going to ask more details about both. First, the snowmobile. Let me hear about the snowmobile ride. Well, it was very cold that night, so I rode it all the way to the foot of the bridge. I'm sorry, witness, but now I've got a problem with your testimony. Excuse me? Godot, what are you up to now? That night, after the head nun left the remainder of the training to you, she said she walked from the inner temple back to Hazakura Temple. Yes, I'm fairly certain that's what the record indicates, which means she would have passed the snowmobile. Let's recall her comments on the subject. Maybe, but when I made it back to Hazakura Temple, it was there, by the main gate. The snowmobile, I mean. The snowmobile was in front of the main gate. This is one of those contradictions, wouldn't you say? Quite right. Order. Mr. Godot, why are you pointing out contradictions in the witness's testimony? Let's just say I like things to be neat and tidy, okay? Well, maybe Sister Bikini missed it. Yes, maybe she didn't see it. You think she missed it? That doesn't sound right. Whatever. Even I don't think this is decisive enough to warrant any more time or effort. It's just, you better be careful in your testimony. That's all I wanted to say. A smart little cookie like you shouldn't have any trouble understanding that. Yes, sir. What was that about? Why would Godot want to give me a hint? Very well then, let's continue with the testimony. So you transported the body by snowmobile all the way to the courtyard. Yes. I thought that way Mystic Maya would never be suspected. That's what I thought anyway. And then she used the snowmobile. What? She used the snowmobile to get to the courtyard. Yeah, there's no way she was doing that. Okay, I'm gonna ask about the tracks. Um, if you really did move her body by snowmobile, then there should be tracks left in the snow, right? Well, yes, naturally you would expect tracks. This picture was presented at yesterday's trial. Are these the tracks from that ride? Yes, I think they are. But I can only see one set of tracks here. I don't see what's so strange about that. Snow was still falling when I left Hazakura Temple. But those are the ones on the way back. It wasn't snowing when you got back. I see. Snow was still falling, huh? And then when the murder took place, it had already stopped. That's why there are such fresh-looking tracks. How about it, Mr. Wright? What do you think about this testimony? She said she dragged the body. When the murder took place, the snow had already stopped. That doesn't make sense if you stack it against the other evidence. Your Honor, I like the statement Iris just made added to the testimony, but does it have something to do with the case? It will be made clear if you allow her statement to be added to the record. This should be fun. Let's get the snow business cleared up, shall we? Yes, sir. By the time the murder took place, the snow had already stopped. I'm gonna question the sword. Is that what you were doing when Sister Bikini saw you? Yes, that's right. She probably thought the worst. Probably. More like definitely. I see. So Sister Bikini mistakenly thought you were the one that murdered Miss Stoneham. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. It's my fault this case has gotten so confusing. By the time the murder took place, the snow had already stopped. I'm going to save it. Let's see. Times murder took place, the snow had already stopped. I have a feeling that has to be very important. Not let tracks photo. So those the tracks coming back and Phoenix running tracks, I believe. Snow from 7 to approximately 10:50, which means that the snow had just stopped. She would have been stuck after the lightning struck. Yes, doesn't like that. Oh well. Okay. Clearly missing something. Unless I needed to do this and then now ask about the snowmobile. Hear about the ride, wrote to the foot of the bridge. She said it was at the temple. It is a contradiction. Maybe Sister missed it. You think she missed it? Whatever, even I don't think. It's just, you better be careful. Very well, let's continue. So you transport the body via snowmobile all the way to the Hazakura Temple courtyard? Yes, I thought that would... That's what I thought, anyway. Let's see. She dragged it, then used the snowmobile And let's go through it all. I don't think this is really used for anything. No. I'm going to assume that the courtyard's just there. Scroll. No one knew. It's not the murder weapon. Still doesn't explain the body falling 10 feet. She still would have had to drag the body inside. This proves it had stopped snowing when she moved the body. This means Larry saw something. Has blood. I mean, okay, she's saying she just moved the body, but there's dragged it. There's okay. That doesn't explain how this got there, or how the. I know I'm gonna do this again. By the time the murder took place, the snow had already stopped. Which I remember stating something like that. I mean, when the snow stopped, it was lightning. Is a snowmobile? Okay, my thing is there's no way it was just the body that she was transporting. It doesn't make sense considering doesn't make sense considering everything else. Like how also how did she move it? Is the fact that there's no drag marks? That remove the body. Oops. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. I don't want to believe, but I don't think my logic is failing me. Iris is trying to pin the murder on Maya. But why would she want to do that? There's only one reason I can think of. I mean, the murder, the crime photo also doesn't make sense given that it stopped. No. now it's just asking me to do the snow tracks. I mean, I get how this could be the hint, but it also makes no sense, yeah. Um, hmm. Alter the wound. I used it to carry the snowmobile. Okay, my thoughts are, leaning towards, on the... Okay, that... Okay, so I did have to look it up because this is just too weird. So it's the dragging. It was the fact that I was supposed to bring up... Oh, sorry, hit my mic. Was supposed to bring up the weather report. It's just 1, 2... I was supposed to bring up the weather report here. Oh my gosh, I did not mean to do that. Crap. Yikes. Yeah, that was a huge mistake. The weather data, I mean, I don't understand why using the weather data anywhere else didn't work, but apparently this was the specific one I had to do it on. You claim that the snow had already stopped when the murder occurred. But I'm sorry, Iris. That just isn't possible. What? This is the weather data from the night of the murder. According to this, the snow didn't stop until 10:50 p.m. But you couldn't have crossed Dusky Bridge at that time. Well, why do you say that? Because 5 minutes before the snow stopped, Dusky Bridge was struck by lightning and had caught on fire. What did you say? The bridge was on fire? You don't mean to say you didn't know about it? It was because of that lightning strike that the bridge burned out. What? But it can't be. It looks like you still haven't figured it out. No matter how hard you try to deceive or conceal the truth, you can't pull the wool over the eyes of a real defense attorney. Okay, so me saying I still think that I should have been able to present the weather data on that last statement, but that's just going to be me. Order. The bridge was already on fire when the incident took place. That's right, the inner temple was already totally cut off from the outside world. There's no way you could have crossed the bridge, body or no body. Witness, even my patience has its limit. Any further lying and I will find you in contempt of court. Do you have anything to say for yourself? What do you have to say, Godot? The only person here that is truly contemptible is you. Old man. That was awkward. Me, how dare you? Whether this witness lied or not does not mean squat right now. Squat? The important thing now is to find out the truth. Isn't that right? Well, that's impossible if she's lying. Yes, of course, but whether it was snowing or not snowing, or whether the bridge was burning or not, there are two facts that can't be disputed. First, the body of Elise Dunham was discovered in the Hazakura Temple courtyard. And second, the head nun, Sister Bikini, witnessed Iris desecrating Elise Dunham's body. He makes a good point on both accounts. That's right. I'm not lying. What are you claiming this time? I wasn't myself at all that night, so my memory is still somewhat hazy. You have stood at the witness stand and testified this entire time. Are you telling us now that your memory of that night is hazy? It is only human to err. If you're so perfect, Trite, maybe you can explain this for the court. What is it? When the murder happened, the bridge had already burnt down. But somehow the body traveled across the bridge and was found in the temple courtyard. Perhaps you have some kind of perfect explanation for this little trick. Well, not exactly, no. No, there must be some other way she got across that burnt bridge. But unless I can somehow demonstrate it, we'll never know the truth. It looks like the defense is not prepared to offer a suitable explanation. Well, the only thing that would help prove that is Larry's picture of a body flying over the bridge. So, unless there was like a zip line that somehow got from the inner temple to Hazakura Temple. And that's my only guess right now. You see, in other words, you're in no position to suggest that this lady's testimony isn't the truth. Her not knowing the bridge was burnt makes no sense either. Alright then, witness, let's hear your testimony once more. About what, Your Honor? You've admitted that you've moved the victim's body. Nevertheless, your prior testimony contained a rather large inconsistency. Please add an explanation for that to your testimony. Yes, Your Honor. Will this be her final testimony? Hopefully, because she won't stop lying. Other than walking over the bridge, there's no way to move the body. So I must have gotten confused, I guess. Was the snow still falling or had it stopped? Does it really matter that much? Or are you saying there was a way to cross a burning bridge? So it's just a misunderstanding. I see. This is a photo of Dusky Bridge after it burned down from the lightning blast. It was taken on the morning after the incident. It certainly was burnt to a crisp, and one of the suspension wires even snapped. That's amazing the whole bridge didn't fall. I mean, that wire might be how... Maybe she did zip line the body across. Clearly it would be impossible to carry a corpse across a bridge in this condition. Unless you do something to discredit this testimony, it's going to be deemed as the truth, and Maya will be accused of murder. Trite, I'm only going to say it one more time. It's only human to err, and only humans can spot errors of our ways. The more sense he makes, the less sense he makes. Is he like on our side? Because it sounds like he's on our side, that now maybe Maya... Now that Iris is accusing Maya? Alright, please begin your cross-examination. I think what I need to do is, even without pushing her on everything, like we have this photograph that somehow has the body going across the bridge. A dead body flying over a burning bridge. It wouldn't exactly rule out the possibility. What? Ha. You're saying it's possible? Don't make me laugh. The only thing that's possible at your claim is that it's been pulled out of thin air. I don't know about that. In any case, we have a witness who did see it happen. Preposterous. Who is it? Who is this witness? I can't chicken out here. I gotta keep on the attack and go, go, go. Miss Elise Dunham's brilliant and highly gifted apprentice, Larice Bunham. Brilliant, highly gifted apprentice. Remember what he said in his testimony? That night he was at the mountain shack, Heavenly Hall, and that's when he witnessed the event. I think you've all seen the sketch before. It's an exact drawing of what he witnessed that night. Are you serious? Today's not April's Fool's Day, is it? Nope, it's September. Mr. Wright, are you seriously claiming that the victim flew through the air? Are you using this pathetic scribble to support your argument? Uh-oh. Just looks like he's about to blow a gasket. Ha. Well, Trite, there's nowhere for you to hide now. Other than looking like it was drawn by a 6-year-old, does the sketch prove anything? Yes, I'm pretty sure it does, and I'm going to prove it. Listen, I know your tricks. I'm going to try and turn this whole thing upside down. If you're so eager to turn this case upside down, why not start with a sketch? Upside down? Why did Godot say that? Because he was upside down. Probably looking at it upside down then. Alright then, let's hear the defense's theory. What exactly is the sketch trying to show? I'm going to save it in case I do this completely wrong. I don't think old Whiskerface is going to forgive any more mistakes. Alright, Phoenix, look carefully and think it over. The sketches drawn by Laurice Donham is exactly what happened. Of course the victim was flying through the air. You can see it right there in the sketch. Whoosh. You know, you started to remind me of yesterday's witness. What? I want to hear that was the last thing I wanted to hear. Do you have any evidence that the victim flew through the air? I think she was ziplining. Just so you know, we haven't discovered a giant human catapult in the inner temple yet. Wish they had. Even if you're a lousy lawyer, at least you're 1 cup's worth of entertainment. I think we should skip the penalty this time. There must be a way to use Larry's sketch to tell the truth of what happened. Alright then, the witness will now return to her testimony. Yes, Your Honor. Okay, so I'm not doing this all over again. I'm happy I saved there. He did say it's upside down and the suspensions are... I think it's for me, the suspensions are under the bridge. So I think Godot might have been right when he said it was upside down. Something is obviously funny about this sketch. I'm no art critic, but even I can see that. No, that's not what I meant, Your Honor. Laurice Donham stated it over and over, that the sketch was exactly as he saw it. However, if we're to believe his testimony, then the sketch contradicts reality as we know it. It contradicts reality? Ha, this is getting interesting. Looks like you're back to the finger pointing thing again. Okay, Trite, so what exactly contradicts reality as we know it? I mean, I kind of want to say the suspension wires and the girl flying. This flying figure, naturally. After all, people haven't learned to fly yet. Or did I miss something? Mr. Wright, that answer just now. It was lethal. After dragging us... Am I supposed to talk about the suspension wires? Okay, yeah, it's the suspension wires. I'm not... Maybe this is wire. It's this wire connected to the bridge. The wire? Ha. Is that thing that contradicts reality? It is indeed. Then show us the reality it supposedly conflicts with. Show us something that will point out how the sketch contradicts reality. The picture you just gave me. That's a photo of Dusky Bridge, correct? Yes. Now compare the sketch and the photo for a minute. In this sketch, the wires appear to be above the guard wires. But on the actual dusky bridge, jumping Josephat, the wires are below the guard wires. What? Okay, I thought I was supposed to use the flying girl as proof that it was upside down. Okay, order. The sketch is somewhat different than what's depicted in the photo. However, isn't it likely the artist just saw it wrong? Or perhaps he just drew it wrong? Either way, it sounds like you're just wrong. With someone like Clarice, I admit a mistake is a definite possibility. But then that begs the question, why did he make a mistake? What was the reason? Are you saying you know the answer to that? Listen, think back, alright? Remember what Clarice was doing when he witnessed this event? He was at Heavenly Hall waiting for a lever that was never going to come. He waited and waited, and he laid down. But then, lightning shoots from the sky and sets the bridge aflame. Now ponder what sort of position Clarice must have been in at the time. He was lying on his back, which is why he remembered the scene the way he did. He was lying on his back. I can't see how it relates. But it does, Your Honor. That is the reason why the wire in the sketch go up instead of down. No way. Clarice Denham witnessed the events while he was lying on his back, face up. In other words, the scene that he saw was actually upside down. So then the sketch should actually... I think you finally get it, Your Honor. The correct way to view Clarice Denham's sketch is like this. This is how it should actually look. The victim's body wasn't flying above the bridge. It was actually swinging below. That's right, just like a pendulum. Ridiculous. I think that was what he was spewing out. Order. Of all the things to say, a pendulum? The bridge was burning to a crisp. There's no way to get it across it. But if the body had been found at the inner temple, it would have caused problems. This is where the criminal decided to take a gamble. They used the burning bridge to get the body across to the other side. And a pendulum was the only way to get it done. Let's think about this for a minute, shall we? Dusky Bridge is about 20 yards long, which means it's about that far from the inner temple to the opposite cliff. Yes, that sounds right. In order to cover that distance with a pendulum, you need a rope at least 10 yards long. To get a rope that long, you have to plan ahead. Not if you use the wires. The lightning strike that night can only have been an accident, so it doesn't make sense that the culprit would have prepared the rope beforehand. So then, they didn't have to get the rope ready. The rope was already right in front of them. What? I'm saying that it was just a matter of using what was already there. In that case, Mr. Wright, please give us an explanation to support your theory. What makes you think the criminal had the rope at hand to create a pendulum? The picture. And the meaning of this is, if you want to know where the rope came from, it's hanging right there in front of your glorious beard. This is one of the wires from the bridge. When the lightning struck the bridge and set it on fire, one of the suspension wires came loose from its anchor. The criminal didn't have any time to waste, so they tied the wire around Elise Stonham's body. Oh, that's real creepy. Because there was simply no other way to move the body. I think he's mad at us. He's just drinking his coffee. Mr. Godot? Seems that Mr. Godot is more focused on his coffee than answering my question. It seems that the odds of a rope being readily available were very high, so I suppose that it's not an impossibility after all. Possible or impossible? That's not the question we need to ask. There's only one question. Did that really happen? Trite, I wonder if you can prove what happened to us. Do you have any actual evidence that the body was swung over like a pendulum? Would it be the... Is it the fact that the body somehow fell 10 feet? Before I present my evidence, let me review what we know so far. According to this photo, one of the wires snapped. Looking at the map, we can see it's one that's in front of the inner temple. So then that's the spot where the criminal... Yes, precisely. Now let's consider the body's movement by looking at the overhead map again. The body was pushed from this point here. It would drop on the opposite bank at approximately this point. Did you say drop? Well, they must have failed to catch the body on the other bank. What makes you think something like that happened? Because I have evidence that suggests her body dropped some distance. What kind of evidence? Take a look at this autopsy report. It says here that her body fell about 10 feet after her death. 10 feet, huh? That's most likely the height difference between the two sides. The body overswung due to the forward momentum and then came loose and fell about 10 feet. Then, as a result of the landing impact, this crystal sphere was knocked loose. That was my second guess if the autopsy report wasn't the right answer. Yes, this blood-stained amethyst crystal. It's the one that came off of Miss Elise Dunham's staff. And even more important is the place where the sphere was found. Indeed, I believe it's already marked on this overhead map. The crystal was found, precisely, Your Honor, in the very spot where the pendulum would arrive if given the right amount of speed. This explains your theory quite well, Mr. Wright. You have proved us with the way a body could have been moved that night. An impressive deduction, Mr. Wright. Most impressive. Mr. Wright? Why'd he throw his coffee at me? I thought this cold coffee might help cool you down. What is the meaning of this, Mr. Godot? That was a dark and bitter guess that you made, Trite. But you forgot about one thing. Oh, and what would that be? The aroma. Huh? The coffee's most reliable accomplice is its deep and profound aroma. The rest of the court doesn't speak Coffinese. Can you elaborate a bit more? The criminal has sent the body to the other side, like you say. Then naturally, there must have been an accomplice lying in wait to catch it. An accomplice? The criminal wasn't able to cross Dusky Bridge, so who collected the body? What do you have to say about that, Trite? Miss Godot is correct. This can't be the work of a single person. Well, Mr. Wright, you know what you must do. Yes, Your Honor. The body couldn't have made it to Hazakura Temple without an accomplice. Very well, then. If you please, Mr. Wright. Who was the person that received the body on the Hazakura Temple side? I mean, I don't dismiss the fact that she, well, like, the thing is, Iris had to have been on the other side in order to... It had to have been Iris. That's the only thing that makes sense. It can only be you, Sister Iris. Huh? But I don't see why you're so surprised. The only way to transport the body from Dusky Bridge is by snowmobile. But with her bad back, Sister Bikini can never pick up a body like that. You're the only one that could have managed it. Trite, were you even listening to the witness's testimony? On the night of the crime, this little cutie pie was on the cleanup duty in the inner temple garden after the mother-daughter bloodbath. She couldn't have gotten back. I haven't forgotten, but you have, Mr. Godot. This witness was also seen at Hazakura Temple, desecrating the corpse of the victim. Strange indeed. It's almost as if, on that night, the defendant was in two different places at the same time. Sister Iris, let me ask you something. Why didn't you mention it when you first gave your testimony? Mention what? The pendulum, of course. Using the sketch drawn by an eyewitness, I have established how the body was moved using the burnt-out bridge, which means it's now a fact that this occurred, something you should have already known. No, I had no idea. I didn't know anything about a pendulum. But the body couldn't have been passed along the other side without your help, so you should have known about it. The fact, it'd be impossible for you to be clueless about this whole thing, unless you're not really Iris to begin with. What? How can you say that, Mr. Wright? What kind of nonsense is this? You're saying this witness isn't Iris of Hazakura Temple? Are you serious, Trite? You mean this woman is... I know about her twin. There's no one besides Iris who could have received the corpse that night. Now I get it. Now I know why I've been sick to my stomach this whole trial. Why her whole demeanor changed so suddenly from yesterday. And why she's trying to pin this murder on Maya. The woman that's standing there at the witness stand. Her real name is... Delilah? Morgan's the only one that makes sense. Delilah... Well, Edgeworth took her prince. And she doesn't have any spiritual power, which means she can't be channeling. Unless she's like Maya and doesn't realize. I have reason to believe that Morgan is still in prison. She could have planned... This is the only thing that makes sense. It has to be Delilah. I never thought I'd have to utter your name again, let alone see you. It's been a long time. Delilah Hawthorne. Hawthorne? Sister Iris had a twin sister. And you're looking at her. Miss Delilah Hawthorne. That name rings some bells. Distant bells, but bells nonetheless. Ha. Just your imagination, Gramps. This file contains all relevant data about Delilah Hawthorne. Oh yes, I remember now. That case, 5 years ago. My name is Delilah Hawthorne. I just want to say, it's an honor for me to be here in your noble presence. The honor is all mine. No, the honor is all mine. But according to this, Delilah Hawthorne is already dead. It says here her execution was carried out last month. Francisca did get stuff about the Quran technique in court before, so maybe I can do something similar. So what? Death has no meaning in this courtroom. What? I actually agree with Godot for once. Order. Wait a moment. How can you... My sister, she's already dead. What kind of... You of all people should already understand, After all, the blood of the master of the Quran channeling technique flows within that body. The Quran channeling technique? Now where have I heard that? That's right, you're not Delilah Hawthorne herself. You're the spirit of Delilah, currently inhabiting the body of a spirit medium. What an exciting story. Exciting, but quite impossible. You're asking us to buy that Delilah Hawthorne just happened to be channeled by someone on the very night of the murder to a temple where her twin sister, Iris, was? Well, if you're going to put things that way, then yes. Well, someone opened the letter and it's possible Iris did. We're supposed to believe a coincidence like that just happens? Naturally, it was no coincidence. The whole thing was part of a plan from the very beginning. It's all written right here in these instructions. Ah, what's that? These instructions were written by your mother, Morgan Fay. And part of the plan called for Delilah Hawthorne to be channeled. That night, there were 2 irises at Hazakura Temple. 2 of them? Even the time of channeling was planned out. As soon as you heard the lights out bell, in other words, 10 p.m. However, Iris was seen before dinner time. That means the Iris that was at dinner was the real Iris, and the Iris who gave me this hood in the main hall was also the real Iris. Meaning the Iris Sister Bikini saw at the inner temple was someone else dressed as her, namely one Delilah Hawthorne. Do you even know what you're saying, Trite? This whole channeling the spirit Delilah Hawthorne business. Yes, it's true that you found plans to talk about it. However, there's one thing that's perfectly clear. The witness currently standing in the witness stand is the real Iris. What? Calm down and remember what you know about the night of the crime. After meeting Sister Bikini, Delilah Hawthorne had been channeled, would have been stranded at the inner temple due to the lightning strike. Exactly. It was later that the body was moved by pendulum. That's right. Naturally, that would mean the Iris that received the body was the real Iris. Are you with me so far? Yes. After being notified of what happened, the police came to Hazakura Temple's main hall. There they found Iris in her room and arrested her. And ever since, she's been under police supervision at the detention center. Yes, I suppose. Can't deny any of that. Whew, thank goodness. It looks like he's finally convinced. But something still seems off. Way off. Well, that doesn't mean she couldn't channel her. I'm still not convinced that the Iris here is the same one from the other night. Huh. I suppose you're about to say something really ridiculous. Like the real Iris and the spirit of Delilah somehow switched places? Switched places? No, I wasn't going to say that. I would say she's channeling her right now. To be perfectly honest, there are still quite a few things I don't understand, but I do know that unless we confirm the witness's identity, we can't continue with this trial. Iris doesn't have the spiritual power needed to channel Delilah, which means they must have switched places somewhere. Well, Mr. Wright, since the time she was arrested at Hazakura Temple, have there been any chances for Iris to switch places with Delilah Hawthorne? There was one. Your Honor, I think there might have been one chance. Oh, explain yourself. Yesterday for a few minutes, Iris's whereabouts were unknown. Unknown? What do you mean? What I mean is, there was a span of time in which Iris was able to move freely, unsupervised. Well, who was it? Who would give a murder suspect time to move about freely like that? I'm sorry, I know you didn't mean to. It wasn't your fault. The person who gave Iris the chance to move freely about was... Sorry, friend. This is Mr. Edgeworth, isn't it? Your Honor, there was a fairly large earthquake yesterday, was there not? An earthquake? Earthquake! Oh my goodness. The inner temple. This kind of tremor might... How could I have? She fled. She escaped. We went to the inner temple right away. And it's true, Iris was already there. However, they had already switched places by that point in time. I arrived at the training hall. I was met by none other than Delilah Hawthorne. That's quite enough already, Mr. Wright. Now see here. No judge in his right mind would consider the idea of spirit channeling. Be quiet. It's been a long time, Mr. Judge. That voice. Guess I'll have to ask again. Name and profession. Among meeting a beautiful lady, I always ask for her name and profession. That's one of my rules. Delilah Hawthorne. In my current profession, permanently retired. Ha. So you're not going to bother hiding your identity anymore, huh? Why should I? After all, I'm dead. There's really nothing you can do to punish me. What is going on here? Delilah Hawthorne. I never thought we'd meet again. I never thought we'd meet like this. But this time, I'll end it. For her and for myself. Are we avenging Mia, finally? Okay, I still don't really get who was channeling Delilah on the other side. That's the only thing. Like, I totally get Iris being the unwitting accomplice. She's really protective like that, and she also gave up. Well, she gave Phoenix her scarf, which if she found out about the plan with Delilah, she could have protected Phoenix by giving her her cap. That makes sense. I believe Pearl when she says she couldn't channel. So that still leaves, unless there was a ghost, we're still left with the only people on that side of the bridge were Pearl and Maya. Which means that, I mean, it's possible, well, the whole point of the acolyte thing is for her to channel spirits, so it's quite easily, Delilah got into Maya's body, did all the stuff, and then locked herself behind all of the Cyclocks, because all the 5 Cyclocks didn't appear until after the new Iris that we now know as Delilah showed up. So she might have taken over Maya's body, blamed the whole thing on the real Maya, and that's my thoughts right now. But we'll see what happens in the next go round, I suppose. But I'll see you guys then. See you guys later. Bye.